Flint, Michigan stands as a grim reminder of what happens when the most basic responsibilities of government are ignored. Once a thriving city known for its role in the American auto industry, Flint became a symbol of neglect and the devastating consequences that can follow. The water crisis that began in 2014 was not just a technical failure, it was a profound moral one, exposing deep flaws in the systems meant to protect people. In Flint, the duty to safeguard public health was abandoned. Officials dismissed residents' concerns, ignored warning signs, and prioritized cost-cutting over safety. The result was a community left vulnerable, their voices unheard, and their trust shattered. Even now, a decade later, the pain lingers. Families remember the moment they realized the water they drank, bathed in, and cooked with was poisoning them. Parents still worry about the long-term effects on their children, and many residents live with anxiety every time they turn on the tap. The crisis led to a doubling of lead levels in children, causing irreversible harm to developing brains and bodies. Doctors and nurses saw firsthand the toll it took. Children with learning difficulties, behavioral problems, and health issues that may last a lifetime. This was not a natural disaster, but a man-made one, created by a series of decisions rooted in neglect, indifference, and a lack of accountability. The people of Flint were forced to fight for their right to clean water, organizing protests and demanding justice. The switch to a cheaper water source made without proper safety measures cost Flint not only its health but also its sense of security. The city's infrastructure was left in ruins, and the process of replacing corroded pipes continues to this day. Residents like Melissa Mays, who became an activist after her family fell ill, still struggle with chronic health problems. Many Flint families face mounting medical bills, ongoing treatments, and the emotional burden of knowing their suffering could have been prevented. The betrayal by those in power left a deep psychological wound. Many residents feel abandoned, grappling with depression, anxiety, and a sense of isolation. Community support groups have become lifelines for those trying to heal. Even today, many Flint residents refuse to drink tap water, relying on bottled water for daily needs. This ongoing mistrust is a powerful symbol of the broken relationship between the people and those meant to protect them. The Flint water crisis exposed a harsh reality. In one of the world's wealthiest countries, an entire city can be sacrificed in the name of budget cuts. The suffering in Flint is a warning that no community is immune to neglect. Flint's story is one of profound loss, of health, of trust, and of lives. But it is also a story of resilience, as residents continue to demand justice and fight for a future where no one has to endure what they did. The Flint water crisis began on April 25, 2014, a date that would become infamous in American history. On that day, city officials made a fateful decision that would change the lives of Flint's residents for years to come. The city, already struggling with economic hardship and a shrinking population, was searching for ways to cut costs. But no one could have predicted the devastating consequences that would follow. This marked the start of a nightmare for thousands of families. Almost overnight, the sense of security that comes from something as basic as clean water was shattered. Residents began to feel a growing sense of fear and uncertainty, unsure of what was happening to their community. In an attempt to save money, officials switched Flint's water supply from Detroit's treated water to the polluted Flint River. The river, long known for its industrial contamination, was never meant to be a source of drinking water. Yet, the switch was made with little regard for the risks involved. The real failure, however, was not just the switch itself, but the lack of proper water treatment. The city's aging infrastructure was ill-equipped to handle the corrosive river water, and officials failed to add necessary chemicals to prevent pipe corrosion. As a result, corrosive water leached dangerous levels of lead from the city's old pipes, silently poisoning the water supply. Lead, a potent neurotoxin, began to flow into homes, schools, and businesses, putting the health of an entire city at risk. Residents immediately noticed foul-smelling, discolored water pouring from their taps. Many reported rashes, hair loss, and illnesses, but their complaints were dismissed. The water looked and smelled wrong, but their voices went unheard. For 18 long months, officials denied there was any problem, insisting the water was safe. Their refusal to act only deepened the crisis, as more and more people were exposed to toxic water. The trust between the community and its leaders was shattered. It wasn't until Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha, a local pediatrician, conducted a groundbreaking study in 2015 that the truth was finally exposed. Her research revealed alarming levels of lead in children's blood, confirming the community's worst fears and forcing the nation to pay attention. Faced with undeniable scientific proof, officials had no choice but to switch Flint's water supply back to Detroit's system. But by then, the damage had already been done, and the scars would last for generations. Thousands of children were found to have elevated lead levels, putting them at risk for lifelong health and developmental problems. Parents were left to grapple with the consequences, feeling betrayed by the very people meant to protect them. The Flint Water Crisis became a national symbol of what can happen when public health is sacrificed for the sake of saving money. It exposed deep flaws in government accountability and the dangers of ignoring the voices of ordinary citizens. Flint's story is a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the consequences of neglect, denial, and the failure to put people before profits. The city's struggle continues, but its lessons must never be forgotten. Flint's water crisis had devastating health impacts. Lead exposure caused neurological damage, especially in children. Legionella bacteria in the water led to a deadly pneumonia outbreak. Families relied on bottled water, facing financial and logistical burdens. The crisis created chronic stress and anxiety in the community. Medical professionals like Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha became advocates. They provided care and validation for residents ignored by officials. Flint's crisis was a profound public health failure. Flint's children face lifelong challenges from lead exposure. Reduced IQ, learning disabilities, and behavioral issues are common. Schools struggle to support affected students with limited resources. The crisis stole potential, creating barriers to future success. Emotional trauma and distrust in authority persist. Families face ongoing health monitoring and anxiety. Flint's legacy is a tragic, unfolding story of lost potential. Flint's crisis exposed systemic racism and environmental injustice. The slow response reflected the city's majority Black, low-income population. Flint's emergency management system silenced local voices. Historical disinvestment and segregation set the stage for disaster. The crisis highlighted environmental racism and justice issues. Flint became a symbol of broader struggles for equity. The crisis forced a national conversation on environmental justice. Flint's story is a call to address racial disparities in public health. Flint's quest for justice has been frustrating and incomplete. A $600 million settlement was reached, but payments are delayed. The process of distributing funds is slow and complex. Criminal charges against officials were dropped, leaving residents disillusioned. No one has been held criminally liable for the crisis. Flint's residents feel a deep sense of injustice. The crisis highlights disparities in the justice system. Flint's struggle for accountability continues. Flint's promise to replace lead pipes remains unfulfilled. Delays and failures plague the infrastructure project. The city struggles with record-keeping and administrative hurdles. Residents' distrust in tap water persists. Flint's struggle highlights America's aging water infrastructure. The crisis exposed vulnerabilities in public water systems. Flint's effort is a case study in logistical and financial challenges. The need for sustained political will is evident. Flint's crisis spurred significant policy changes. Michigan adopted stringent lead-in water regulations. The state mandated full lead service line replacement by 2041. Filter-first laws protect children in schools and child care centers. The crisis influenced national policies on lead pipe replacement. Flint reshaped the conversation on environmental justice. The Justice 40 program aims to benefit disadvantaged communities. Flint's legacy is one of advocacy and change. Flint stands as a powerful symbol, a stark warning, and an urgent call to action for communities everywhere. The events that unfolded here are not just a local tragedy, but a lesson for the entire nation and even the world. Flint's story reminds us that the health and well-being of people must always come before budget cuts or political convenience. The water crisis taught us that public health can never be sacrificed for the sake of saving money. When officials failed to protect Flint's water, the consequences were devastating. Families suffered, children were exposed to toxins, and trust was shattered. We must demand that leaders prioritize the safety and dignity of every resident, no matter their zip code or income. Trust between communities and government is not automatic. It must be earned and maintained through transparency, accountability, and genuine partnership. When that trust is broken, it takes years, even generations, to rebuild. Flint's ongoing reliance on bottled water is a daily reminder of the trauma endured. For many, the simple act of turning on the tap is now fraught with anxiety and uncertainty. The scars left by this crisis run deep, affecting not just physical health, but mental and emotional well-being. The crisis in Flint exposed deep-rooted environmental injustice and racial disparities. It showed us that marginalized communities are often the first to suffer when systems fail and the last to receive help. This is a pattern we must break. Flint's struggle sparked a national movement, inspiring people across the country to demand accountability, transparency, and equity from those in power. It became a rallying cry for environmental justice and the right to safe water. The story of Flint is not over. The fight for justice, clean water, and government accountability continues every day, led by residents and allies who refuse to be silenced. To prevent future crises, we must stay vigilant, informed, and engaged. Education and community involvement are key to holding leaders accountable and ensuring that everyone's voice is heard. Safe, clean drinking water is not a privilege. It is a fundamental human right. Flint's lessons urge us to protect this right for all, now and for generations to come.